Hello, everybody, and welcome to Soul Stained Ink. My name is Beth, and I am here today because I completed the first set of books for my dissertation. So, if you are new or just missed it, which I don't know how you could because I kind of blab about it a lot, I am working on my PhD in children's and adolescent literature, and I have managed to get all the way through to the dissertation stage. My dissertation is over middle grade literature, critical neurodiversity studies, and regional ideologies, which basically boiled down means that I am looking at middle grade books that are set in 4 different regions of the United States and feature some sort of neurodiverse main character. The first region I checked out was the Northeast, and the cultural ideological tropes in that area are things like school and academics being incredibly important, and the main adult help for the main character should be some sort of teacher or school expert adult. So, what I looked at and tabbed as I annotated were things like where are the symptoms shown? What are the symptoms? Who is the expert adult? The pink is for the school setting, and then orange is for their hyper focus. What do they love doing? What are they thinking about? What helps them in their journey? The first book I want to talk to you about is Buzzing by Samuel Satin and illustrated by Rye Hickman. So, when I do these notes that I write over the books, see, I have different sections. I talk about what the diagnosis is, who the expert adult is, school setting, and then their hyper focus and what other people's issues are if there's someone else in the book that plays an important role that has something different than the main character. In Buzzing, the neurodivergence is OCD. And since it is a graphic novel, we have this amazing representation of OCD as bees. Our main character has a therapist who we never see, but we hear mentioned. Mom talks about Dr. Penny a lot, and the mom is really hyper controlling of her son because Dr. Penny said that he needs to be careful to avoid anything that could make his symptoms worse. And so, as he's making friends and starts playing a role playing game with them, she is very concerned because his grades are already slipping. Um, you see this represented beautifully in sections like this. The bees are his thoughts and anxieties. There's his sister who is being kind of ignored by their mother because she's so worried about him. And all of this is in a darker art form. And then we get to our expert adult, who is the school counselor. And I wish I could remember his name, and I do not. But he encourages Isaac, our main character, to continue hanging out with his friends and playing the role playing game. And when he is with his friends, this beautiful thing happens in the artwork. So Isaac loves to draw, and you see these bright, colorful panels uh, as he's with his friends playing the role playing game, just hanging out or drawing their characters. His OCD symptoms go away. Well, they don't go away, but they minimize. The colors get brighter. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. All right. The next one I want to talk to you about is Honestly Elliot. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was amazingly written. Elliot is a 6th grade boy who has been diagnosed with ADHD, and you find out immediately in the book that he has been um, At the beginning of chapter 1, he says, "If you saw me in the kitchen, you would think that I'm the kind of person who has it all together. That's because cooking is my secret power. It's my favorite thing to do. And it also happens to be the place where I am most completely myself." And then you go a little bit further on, and he says, um, "I'm not good at everything. I'm not even good at most things, especially sports, especially school, and especially keeping my mind on one track. That last part is because I have ADHD, otherwise known as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as my brain is stubborn and likes to do its own thing. I think of it like this: some people have regular brains. Dr. Gilmore says neurotypical. If you ask one of those brains to do something, they probably say stuff like, yes, absolutely, I would be happy to get that done for you on the double. Math equations, fantastic. Paying attention to a little white ball, even though we're all the way out here in right field and no one hits it out here anyway, I'd love to. Yeah, that's not how my brain is. If my brain isn't extremely interested in what's happening, it's like, that's it, buddy, I'm out of here. Then it just stomps off down the hall or leaps out the window or dances around on a pogo stick instead of sticking with me. Even when I really want to stay focused, my brain sometimes takes off anyway." So obviously, his diagnosis is ADHD. As you read through the book, you kind of find out more that he has inattentive variety, although he does get hyper at times. Um, Inattentive ADHD used to be called ADD. They have taken that off the board now. There are just two types, well, three types of ADHD. So inattentive, hyperactive, or like a hybrid version. Um, and his hyper focus is, of course, cooking. His expert adult is Dr. Gilmore. Like he said, she is phenomenal. She does feature greatly in the story, either just from him talking about her or a couple of times where he goes and visits the office. And Dr. Gilmore talks to Elliot as a mentor would talk to their mentee versus just talking at him about things. Really helps him focus and learn what his brain is like. You find out that Elliot is in the second semester of sixth grade. First semester of sixth grade, he got overwhelmed and started hiding things in his closet, completely ignoring projects and homework, and he almost flunked out. And so you have Miss Choi, his advisory class teacher, and his parents who are divorced. And so you also have his dad's new wife who is very heavily pregnant during this story. And they got him diagnosed, and Dr. Choi is amazing. And so the school setting and Dr. Choi do feature greatly in this, as well as his dad's struggles with his new wife. Well, they're great. Their relationship is great, but just like this whole new wife, new life, new kid on the way, and then his older son is not sporty, is not what he kind of expected to have with a sixth grade son. And he struggles, Elliot struggles with impulse control, and he gets overwhelmed and says or does things that he doesn't really mean to do. He's very clumsy. And that is the case with a lot of kids who have ADHD or are neurodiverse. Your ability to work through your emotions and to control your impulses is often stunted. You don't grow as quickly in that as the neurotypicals tend to do. So you read a little younger in real life as well as in books, and it can be an issue. And that really came across well. One of the things I loved about this book is that he has footnotes, and it's literally just Elliot still going on. So he's very sassy even in his footnotes. Another big part of this is that there is a final big project in sixth grade, and it is a group project. And he gets partnered with a girl who was kind of part of the Mean Girl group at one point. But they become really good friends and they have a cooking project, and she has celiac disease, which was very interesting to get put in there. He is hyper focused and obsessed with a certain chef. And that chef says that baking is stupid and bakers aren't real chefs because they have to follow recipes. And so he kind of has to come to grips with not just baking, but also that recipes can be good. So that's a whole another little side quest. His stepmother is pregnant, so there's a lot of emotional things going on with that. Is very incredibly well written. I highly recommend, honestly, Elliot. Next, I have Rogue by Lynn Miller Lockman. This is a novel, and our main character, Kiara, has Asperger's, which doesn't exist anymore, which I find incredibly interesting. I was originally diagnosed with Asperger's. This book was published in 2013. She self diagnoses as having Asperger's, and then towards the end of the book, they get confirmation she does indeed have that. But in the last few years, the titles have changed. Asperger's no longer exists. I mean, I still exist, obviously, but the diagnosis itself has changed to being part of level 1 in the autism spectrum disorder. There are multiple levels depending on who you speak to and the scholarship that you read on it. Sometimes we have merely 3 levels, and each level has subdivisions. I've seen up to 5 levels, I believe, and that's just kind of breaking down more. I have a nephew who is ASD 2, but he's kind of upper ASD 2. I'm ASD 1. You know, we have kids that have ADHD that are considered ASD 1, and that just speaks to the level of extra support that you need. Um, Supposedly, I don't need as much support, although if you asked my fiance, I'm sure that he would argue differently. Anyway, Kiara has Asperger's, and at the very beginning of the book, you find out that, like we were talking about a minute ago, she got overstimulated, she got overwhelmed, she couldn't control her emotions. She hit a girl who was bullying her in the face with a lunch tray, which I found very satisfying for Kiara, but it ended in her being expelled from school. She is completing 8th grade at home via the internet. She calls the internet Mr. Internet, and she goes to Mr. Internet for answers as well as to do schoolwork. And then a couple of times a week, she does have a teacher that comes in to check with her. That does not play a huge role in the story. She does discuss a few times how she hopes she can go back to regular pop and like actually be in school and not have to go to some sort of special ed school or anything, or continue online as she moves into high school. But her family and her need for friendship and companionship are the big part of this story. She has a new family that moves in across the street, and she talks about how she always tries to make friends with the new kids before they find out that she's a crybaby and she's weird, because she thinks if she can snag them, like maybe she'll have a friend for a little while before they leave her. She does that with the new kid across the street, and I believe his name is Chad, and his family is not great. And he is doing things and kind of tricks her into doing things to help his parents do nefarious things, all to protect his little brother. And that plays a huge part of the story, as does her family. Her mom has left and is touring with a band. And so there's kind of a family dynamic of, is mom going to come back? Dad's really depressed and not paying a lot of attention. The old people that lived across the street previously were kind of like pseudo grandparents for her, and now the grandpa figure passed away prior to the book starting, and the grandma figure has moved away to kind of a nursing home situation, and so this house is being rented out, and so there's a lot of emotional turmoil and changes happening, which really has a tendency to upset and dysregulate um, neurodivergent individuals. And that is what the story is about, and it's her kind of figuring out her emotions and how to help people in her growth as an individual, as a friend, as a daughter, figuring out that she has Asperger's and how to deal with that. There is a lot of BMX in there, and her hyper focus is the X-Men, which is why this is titled Rogue, because she feels really close to the character of Rogue. She identifies with Rogue. She identifies Chad, the boy across the street, more as Gambit, who is Rogue's best friend. And then one of her big brothers, one of his friends, really comes into play and kind of becomes a pseudo big brother for her. And she identifies him as Wolverine. So there's a lot of talk of X-Men and comic books in Lynn Miller Lockman's Rogue. Like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was really well written. I did identify a lot with several of the ways that she described her symptoms. I feel like she was written a little younger than eighth grade because I remember being in eighth grade with those symptoms and those feelings, and I wasn't quite that. I was dysregulated for sure because what eighth grade girl isn't? But I feel like I didn't read that young as an eighth grader, but I'm 41 now, so what do I know? Right. The next book I have for you is Focused by Allison Gerber. This is again a novel, and we follow Clea at the beginning of the book. She is, look at how much I tabbed that sucker. At the beginning of the book, she is struggling a lot with dysregulation. Her and her best friend are starting to fight a lot. He has family issues. His dad left, has a new girlfriend. And so he's going through a lot of emotional turmoil. And Clea struggles with impulse control and she loses a lot of time. So she'll start doing something, and then all of a sudden it's an hour and a half later. She writes lists and schedules for herself and then struggles to follow through with them. And she also starts hiding things in her backpack and in her closet so that she doesn't have to complete them. Um, and during the beginning of the book, she has some teachers like Mr. Lee, who is her English teacher, and her chess club advisor, who become concerned. They talk to her parents. The school counselor kind of shadows her for a day, and they get her in to see Dr. Gold and Dr. Sharma. Dr. Gold is incredibly important. She is the psychologist that Clea sees, and then no, she is the psychiatrist Clea sees, and Dr. Sharma is the psychologist who helps her with testing. And they find out that Clea has ADHD. Um, and I believe she has the inattentive variety as well. Um, but this is a huge part of the story as she learns that she is not, in fact, stupid. She talks about herself as being incredibly stupid and behind, and she's going to fail out. And she has all these anxieties, and they start giving her aid at school, and they start helping her speak up and take agency for herself because now she knows what's going on and that her brain is different, not less. And she's actually incredibly smart. They just have to find ways to help her to focus. And her hyper focus is chess. And that also plays a big part in the story. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. There's a lot of great discussion on friendship and how neurodivergent people navigate friendship. There's a lot of great discussion on finding ways to control your impulses, to focus, things of that nature. I really enjoyed it. I think you might too. I know this video is getting long. I have 3 more physical books to discuss and one that I don't have in physical form. I will try to go quickly. This is A Perfect Mistake by Melanie Conklin. This one follows Max. He is huge for a sixth grader. He is almost 6 feet tall and has incredible inattentive ADHD, but he's also an incredible artist. And this is actually a mystery. So while his symptoms do come into play a lot, we are not so much focused on an expert adult leading him through dealing with it as we are. His best friend is in a coma and he wants to figure out what happened that night. And he ends up teaming up with a girl from his class who wants to be a journalist, and they are trying to follow these clues, and it's phenomenal. There's also a huge family dynamic where his uncle, who he very rarely sees, shows up and stays with them for a little while. And this is his mom's brother. So there's a lot of back and forth between his mom and his uncle. And you kind of find out that maybe the whole family needs to be diagnosed. I won't say more than that, but it is a great book, and you can see I very much enjoyed it. Melanie Conklin actually saw me post about this on Instagram and commented, which absolutely made my entire month. All right, next I have Not If I Can Help It. I gave this a 3 star. Um, yeah, this is by Carolyn Mackler, and we follow Willa. Willa has a sensory processing disorder, and I thought that part was written incredibly well, but the storyline itself, I didn't particularly love. She does go and see an occupational therapist to help her with her sensory processing disorder a couple of times a week, which was really well done. But basically, Willa likes things to be certain ways. She needs particular pants, particular socks, all of those things that you would expect. She has a best friend that moved in at the beginning of the school year. We are at the end of the school year, and we find out that her dad and her best friend's mom have been secretly dating. And while Ruby, her best friend, thinks that it is amazing, her little brother thinks it is amazing. Even her mom and stepdad thinks it's great. Willa hates it and is actively trying to get everyone else on board with hating it and breaking her parents up, or breaking her dad and her best friend's mom up. So it's basically her journey through dealing with that. And like I said, I really liked the parts where she talks about her sensory processing disorder. And she also ends up helping a kindergartner who is struggling with a lot of those same symptoms. I found that great. But the main part of the story is about coming to terms with her dad and her best friend's mom getting married or getting engaged. And I didn't particularly like that part of the storyline, although it was well written. All right. Finally, I have Fish in a Tree. This is by Linda Mullally Hunt. And this follows Allie. And Allie uh, doesn't understand how everybody else can do so well in school when she's struggling so hard. And so she is getting into a lot of trouble. She's deliberately distracting from her inability to do things by getting herself sent to the office. And she has fooled a lot of people, but then her main teacher gets maternity leave, gets sent on maternity leave, and Mr. Daniels comes in, and Mr. Daniels is studying to be a special education teacher, and he notices some things right off the bat that makes him wonder. And eventually he gets permission from Allie and from Allie's mom, and he starts working with her and gets her tested, and lo and behold, she has dyslexia. And so she starts getting extra help from Mr. Daniels and starts realizing that maybe she's not stupid and she can do these things and she's learning to read. I really enjoyed that. There's kind of a side story where she gets two best friends, and that's phenomenal as well. There's another little subplot where we find out about her family, and her big brother is a lot like her. Her dad is in the military and is deployed. Her mom is working a lot. And her grandpa has just passed away. But my big issue with this book, which is not a big issue at all, but my big issue with the book is that the first half of the book, she talks a lot about Alice in Wonderland because her grandpa used to read the book to her a lot and she really identifies with it. And the second half of the book doesn't mention Alice in Wonderland. And I feel like we could have really explored that more in the second half as well. Um, but that's fine. That's just me because I love Alice in Wonderland. Her hyper focus is art, and she has a sketchbook called The Sketchbook of Impossible Things. And I love that they included some of the images from that in this book. Here we have penguins playing basketball. At one point, she talks about dinosaurs having tea and watching the meteor come down to destroy them. And there's that picture. So I loved that little inclusion in the back of the book. Like I said, it's 3.5 stars. Would have been a solid 4 stars if they would have just kept talking about Alice in Wonderland through the second half of the book. The final book that I read, but I am not currently thinking that I'm going to use in my dissertation, is Mixed Up by Cami Garcia. That is a graphic novel which follows some girls going into, I believe it was 6th grade. One of them finds out that she has dyslexia, and it's kind of her struggle with realizing that she's different, but also still connecting with her friends and the things that they love to do together. I enjoyed it. I'm just not 100% sure that I'm going to use it with the other books. I don't even remember what I rated it because I didn't look it up before I started making this video. And we're almost at 30 minutes. So I hope that you enjoyed this discussion. If you stuck with me to the end, I appreciate you so, so much. I hope that you have an amazing day. Come talk to me in the comment section down below. Have you read any of these books? Do you want to read any of these books? Do you want to know more about what I'm doing when I complete the books that I have for the South? Do you want me to do another video like this? What are you reading? Come tell me in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you again soon. Until next time, stay safe out there, guys.